Hey everyone, and welcome to this brand new video featuring all that's new on the OC Streetcar for the month of August here on Tiger Railfan. Let's first, of course, start with an overall map of the OC Streetcar. We're going to be starting at the Harbor Transit Center on the west side, heading all the way east into downtown Santa Ana, taking a look at several of the OC Streetcar stops, starting with the Harbor Transit Center, which is located just over there. But I'm sure pretty much immediately you would have noticed that very large intersection in between us and the station. This is the large intersection of Westminster and Harbor, and it truly creates for an unwalkable environment, unfortunately. And in terms of transit-oriented development, there is not much around here at all besides a few restaurants, stores, and low-density businesses. There are, though, a bunch of bus connections. There are 2 rapid and 2 local bus routes that stop here. I'm not going to go too in-depth into those in this video. I do in the previous month's construction update if you'd like to look at that. So there is plenty of connectivity here, but now let's get back to the construction part of the episode, which is why I'm sure we're all here. Across the street, we can see that nothing really new has been done, unfortunately. Although we do see some construction workers parked just over there, and we can see one of those worker vehicles moving right now that just left the left-hand side of the screen. So hopefully this means that they're going to be working on the electrical components of the station potentially soon. But as we can see right here by that disabled placard sign, it looks like we are going to have parking at this station, and that includes the use of handicap parking. So this could be a park and ride facility for plenty of riders to use. And it might actually be worth it, as the trains on here tend to go grade separated all the way until the Raitt Street station, which is about halfway along the route. So there is some speed that comes with the western part of the OC Streetcar, which is good to see there. Let's go ahead and cross the street, though, Harbor Boulevard in particular, to get a better look at one of the only bridges along the route. Unfortunately, there is really not much grade separation with the OC Streetcar, although there is not much to be expected from that, as it is called the OC Streetcar. Streetcar is in the name. But now that we've finished crossing the street here, let's go ahead and see what we can look at the station with a closer view. Also, do feel free to pause the video and feel free to give your own commentary in the comment section down below. I'm always curious to see the feedback you have and any other points that you may have, as I certainly am not going to get everything that we have here. But of course, let's go ahead back. And looking on our right, we can just truly see how busy this area is in terms of the amount of vehicular traffic coming through the area. So it's certainly really busy here with this green light cycle. So hopefully we can get some improvements here, maybe later in the future. Maybe a median in the middle so we can split the crosswalk into 2 pieces to make it safer for those who may be slower at crossing such a wide street like this. But looking at our right, we're also able to see one of the connecting buses here. This is the OC Bus Route 60, and coming up just behind it is the Rapid 560. But looking straight ahead, we're able to see that the wires are still hanging and they are not tense yet. But spoiler alert, we're going to be seeing work being done on that later in the video. So make sure to stay tuned to take a look at that. But now let's go ahead to the next stop along the line at Fairview Station. And here comes that Rapid 560 just behind it. We're going to use this to get to the next stop, Fairview. I'll see you all there. And now before we get to the actual Fairview station, I do want to show you the Fairview Street crossing over the Santa Ana River. The OC Streetcar also makes this crossing just slightly further down, which we can see right there. Now there is a historic railroad bridge just next to the OC Streetcar, which is the concrete one. So the OC Streetcar is on the bridge closest to us, and it does go around that historic railroad bridge just behind it. I love how they've been preserving it, and honestly, I wouldn't have minded if the streetcars just went through the bridge. But there might have been some structural components to it that weren't up to standard for a modern train like the OC Streetcar. But the sidewalk here on Fairview Boulevard is really not much at all. On Apple Maps, it does show this as a walkable route, walking down Fairview Boulevard. But honestly, I wouldn't even consider this a bike lane, so they really do need more improvements here as well, especially with the Santa Ana River Bike Trail just on our right-hand side. Having proper sidewalks and bike lanes there would provide great ability for bikes to get around and cross the river that way. But let's go ahead now to the actual Fairview Station area. which is located at the intersection of Fairview and Civic Center, which is located just ahead. But getting a general look around before we get to the station, there is a similar theme of low density and not much around here. There is one bus connection though, which is actually the frequently ran Route 47, which runs north and south along Fairview Boulevard in this section of Orange County. But I guess a noteworthy destination on our right hand side would be the Santa Ana Unified School District. So for administrators who work there, at least that would be a very convenient way to get to work for sure. But now let's go ahead and get a look at the station for Fairview Boulevard. Here's a closer look at that OC bus stop, which services the Route 47, as you can see right here. Moving forward, we can see the railroad crossing for the OC streetcar. While it isn't an elevated bridge, I appreciate the fact that the OC streetcar vehicles are given priority here. And with the rather low amount of traffic on Fairview Boulevard on this weekday afternoon, on Wednesday, it's probably okay to have some intermittent delays from the railroad crossing going down. But here we are at the OC streetcar station, and just like most of them along the line is a small one-car stop. This one is a median station with a central island platform, which is how most of the stations are until you reach downtown Santa Ana. There are also railroad crossings for the sidewalk and crosswalk here, and in order to enter the station, you would just walk up the central ramp, which of course is wheelchair accessible. It is unfortunate though to see that the OC streetcar stop sign has already been vandalized. And this has been a common theme throughout the video, unfortunately, or previous ones actually. So this does emphasize the need for great construction security and larger fences. But we just saw on the left-hand side the Lydia Romeo Cruz Academy, which is a school that's going to be serviced by the Fairview station here on the OC streetcar. So at least we'll have a school connected to the OC streetcar. But of course, I'm not sure how many students and parents would actually ride the system, and ridership would be limited to just school arrival and dismissal times. So that is rather unfortunate, and I do predict the station will be one of the lower ridership ones. But looking forward, we can see there is some work being done on the overhead wires, potentially to test them, adjust the voltage perhaps, or maybe they just finished tightening them, and maybe we'll see this construction vehicle or another one head back to the Harbor Transit Center where they can work on those overhead wires, which absolutely do need tightening in order for testing to begin. That would be the next step for the OC streetcar, testing. But of course, here's one final look at the Fairview station stop. We can see the rules of the streetcar located on the left, and of course we see the red emergency phone that was placed up probably quite a few months ago now. So unfortunately, in the end, there really is not much new to report here at the Fairview station, unfortunately. But we can see that Route 47 connection coming right by. But now, let's get a look at the next stop along the line, which is going to be Raitt Street Station. And now looking right here, we can actually see a bus connection already, which is the Route 151 counterclockwise towards Santa Ana via the South Coast Plaza. There is a clockwise version of this route, which is the Route 150A. So this Raitt Street Station, although on quite the residential street here, is still connected on the bus network. So I'm sure there will be people transferring between the OC streetcar and the bus routes that service Raitt Street here. It is worth noting that the Route 64, a very frequent bus route, runs along Westminster Boulevard and 1st Street, which is located about 3 blocks south of us, behind us, which actually is quite close. Maybe about a 3 to 4 minute walk. But now let's actually get a look at the OC streetcar station, which is going to be located just ahead and to our left. But the main thing worth noting here is that Santa Ana Boulevard does start here at Raitt Street, and this is where the OC streetcar transitions from on its own right of way to street running. So looking just to our left hand side, we can actually see a construction vehicle on the tracks working on the overhead wires, and just on our left hand side, one of the vehicles is about to enter as well. We can also see that signaling is now on and is currently displaying a stop signal. So this is actually a step ahead from last month, where I do not believe we saw the signals on. So it is absolutely refreshing to see brand new changes done to the system. We can see that the construction vehicle is connected to the overhead wires over there, so it is absolutely potentially measuring the voltage of the overhead wires, ensuring that it's ready for service testing. I can't wait until that begins, and that is going to be truly the next big step for the OC Streetcar. But for some reason, we do have a railroad crossing for these sidewalks here, but not for the street. I almost wish they would have just continued on its own right of way for just a second by placing a railroad crossing here on Raitt Street, so that the streetcar could run unobstructed onto that Santa Ana Boulevard portion. But we do have some signage up already from a couple months ago, which will showcase whenever a streetcar is coming through to warn motorists to be careful. But here's another look at the OC Streetcar stop at Raitt Street, but it is mostly just the same. But behind it, we can see that there are now at least 5 OC Streetcar vehicles parked here. There's a 5th one just out of frame on the right-hand side of the building, but it is pretty difficult to see. On the overhead wires here, there is some new equipment placed on it. This could also actually be measuring the voltage. I'll point it out more as we go on, but it was essentially white and yellow wires attached onto the overhead wires. Looking back at the OC Streetcar stop, we can see that it is pretty much the same. The seats are still covered up in that plastic, and it actually looks quite dirty because they've been covered for so long. But it is good to see that they're protecting things like the seats and the ticket vending machine, so that way it looks pristine whenever it opens to the public. And also, I've been loving the feedback on our new before and afters that we've been posting on the construction updates. But unfortunately, there is nothing new so far to be posting at these new OC Streetcar stops besides the fact that the signals were on. So we aren't doing those in this episode, but don't fear, we're going to be doing that plenty more times in future construction updates to help show the changes over the past few months. Now, typically I'd walk along the alley on the right-hand side to get a closer look at the depot, but we're going to continue along the line today. But feel free to get a look at last month's episode where we took an in-depth look at the depot. Here's a better look where you can see all 5 of those OC Streetcar vehicles as well. Now, a quick look at the area around the station. It's really just single-family homes, so I really don't understand why there actually is a station here. Maybe it's for a transfer to the Route 64, which is a few blocks down, or maybe it's a transfer for the bus routes here. But either way, I'm sure that this station is also going to be one of the lower ridership stations, unfortunately. But now let's walk along Santa Ana Boulevard and head to the next stop along the line, which is going to be at Bristol Street. And here we are. The station's going to be located at the intersection of Bristol and Santa Ana, which is actually quite a large intersection here because of Bristol. Bristol is a very large street running north and south, so although the pedestrian infrastructure is really lacking here, we do have some good bike infrastructure in terms of bike lanes. But this also serves as a great transfer point for the very busy Route 57, which runs north-south along Bristol Boulevard. So maybe this is a method behind the station placement. They're being placed every time there is a bus connection nearby, although here on Bristol Boulevard, this is a great choice to place it. We can see that the OC Streetcar stops actually look a little different here. Instead of a median platform, we have a much different look here with 2 side platforms, and this is how the stations are going to look like from here on out, essentially, into downtown Santa Ana. And this could be because of the lack of space on the streets. But let's go ahead and get a look at the Bristol Street Station. We can see that the abbreviation SARTC is used, which I personally don't think should be used on the system because it's so confusing for those who are new to the area. It does stand for Santa Ana Regional Transportation Center for those who are new to the channel. But looking straight ahead, we can see that the same covering is used on the seats. There we can see some lights and security cameras along with some speakers, lights, and more. You can see the actual OC Streetcar sign is there as well with the station lighting that is not currently on, so they're probably done testing that. But in a previous video, we saw those lights all on, so we can confidently say that it's working, and hopefully it still is. But you may think that this metal is quite hot here, and it does look like it, but upon touching it right there, it's actually cool. So for those who are worried about the temperature of the metal on the seats and the leaning bars that we have just on our left-hand side, it's actually going to be quite cool. So this is new technology being used also on the A line. We can also see the ticket vending machine for the station just in there. A little sneak peek if you would. because most of it is behind those plywood containers. Looking to our left-hand side, we can see the other platform for the OC Streetcar. Now, in this episode, we're not going to cover that in depth, but feel free to check out last month's construction update, where we take a good solid look at the other side of the platform as well. But instead, let's head towards the next stop along the line, which is going to be Flower Street. But we're actually going to walk there this time, so we can get a look at a portion of Santa Ana Boulevard. We can see some of the new changes done in between the stations that we haven't really covered in previous episodes. So now let's go ahead and take a look. The first thing we see, obviously, is the bike lane that continues all the way down Santa Ana Boulevard. And now that we are in between Flower Street and Bristol Street Station, we can see that the bike lane does actually change here. Instead of the green font on the ground, it's going to be in between the parking and the one lane open to traffic. So it's worth noting that it's not as noticeable where the bike lane is until you get up to this point right here. So it's a little inconsistent, but the bike lane returns to that green color, which I really like, as it really helps show where bikers go and it helps tell cars where they shouldn't be. Unless, of course, they're making a right-hand turn here. But there is also now a median in between Santa Ana Boulevard, which I absolutely love. Even though it's small, it really provides that extra amount of safety and helps prevent vehicles from crossing over the median by mistake. So let's go ahead now to the next stop at Flower Street. The bike lane continues and the OC Streetcar stop protects it from vehicular traffic, which is a feature that I always mention that I love. And I wish they had this more in such a way that parking protected the bike lane back where we were earlier. But of course, the station is in very similar condition as the other ones. We have, of course, the new red telephone pole that was here since last month's construction update, actually a few months prior to that as well. But we can see that it has many of the same features. It has that security camera, a couple small lights on that small roof structure. There's also security cameras and a departure screen over there, which is going to showcase any service alerts and departures for the next OC Streetcar. Of course, I'm not exactly sure what that hole is meant to be. It's probably going to be a security camera, if I had to guess. But you may notice here that there is only one platform, and this is actually the eastbound platform towards Santa Ana. The other one's going to be located across the street diagonally from us. We're going to get a look at that in just a second. But here's the entrance to the eastbound Flower Street station, which has a crosswalk across the bike lane. Now let's go ahead and cross the street to get a better look at the other OC Streetcar station. But of course, the crossings of Flower Street and Santa Ana Boulevard is pretty rough, and pedestrian infrastructure has not really been improved around the OC Streetcar stops. Although there is not much traffic in the area, I think it's still good to future-proof the area, since maybe in 10-20 years, this area will be heavily trafficked and there'll be tons of vehicles. But now that we've actually crossed the street here, we can get a better look at the density by the original OC Streetcar stop. It's pretty interesting how your perspective of things changes once you look at it from another angle. So here there is a pretty good amount of density, and I would consider Flower Street as maybe the first downtown station of the area. This is where the infrastructure and areas around the stations begin to transfer from more suburban to more urban. And as a result, I'm pretty sure that these downtown stations are going to have more ridership than the ones we've looked at earlier, except maybe for the Harbor Transit Center. Looking in the distance, we can truly see the density start to get bigger, which is something that I love, and hopefully the streetcar will serve as a great transit option for the people who work in downtown Santa Ana. But crossing the street here, let's go ahead and get a look at the westbound OC Streetcar stop, which is going to be located just ahead. This will service trains towards the Harbor Transit Center. We can already see that the sidewalk has a bunch of markings on the ground as well, so that likely means that construction is likely to begin there soon potentially, but it probably won't be anything long-lasting, such as what we're used to when we have large transit projects like this one. But we can see the light structure for the station, which appears to be on, which means that it's working luckily, and we have electricity going through the station. We can see that it's pretty much a replica of the other side, except maybe that little plywood piece that's off the side there. But we have our red emergency telephone over here, and the light structure on the other side is also on. It's also worth noting that we have 2 entrances and exits for this station, which is a difference from the other platform. I always think that there should be 2 entrances and exits, especially in the downtown areas like this, because people are going to be entering the station from either direction. And I honestly feel that people would jaywalk across the bike lane anyways, especially if they were about to miss their train. But let's continue along Santa Ana Boulevard here towards the Ross Street station. We're not exactly here yet, but this is the split that I wanted to show you, where the OC streetcar splits off into 2 directions. This is where eastbound trains leave Santa Ana Boulevard and enter 4th Street, where they continue all the way until the Santa Ana Regional Transportation Center. To our left, we have our westbound tracks, which is going to be heading west towards the Harbor Transit Center, and it remains along Santa Ana Boulevard, curving along with the street here. This change happens at Sacker Park, which is going to be in between the 2 splitting streets. Additionally, we can see the Ross Street station if we zoom in closely and look behind the park. We'll get a closer look at that in just a second, but the bike lane does continue here with Santa Ana Boulevard. But it's worth noting that it is one direction only, so that means you cannot head eastbound towards Santa Ana with your bike on the bike lane here. Of course, you could just use the other side of the street and take up a lane, but there are other options for bike lanes as well, such as continuing along the eastbound OC streetcar route on 4th Street, although there's also a bike lane on 5th Street, the one just north of 4th Street. But you can see in the distance that Ross Street station, which is going to be for the eastbound traffic heading towards downtown Santa Ana. Now, the westbound Ross Street station is going to be located a little farther down. It's going to be located about a block further, and we're going to get a better look at that in just a second. So let's go ahead and skip a little forward here on Santa Ana Boulevard until we get to the intersection of Santa Ana Boulevard and Ross Street, which is where we're going to be able to find the Ross Street station. Let's take a look. And here we are. It is worth noting that there is also a bike lane going up and down Ross Street. So this is a large interchange for bikes as well, where you can transfer from the bike lane on Santa Ana Boulevard over to the Ross Street bike lane, which of course has bike lanes in both directions. Notably, just ahead we can see there is a large county office building, and next to it is the OC streetcar stop for Ross Street Station. So let's go ahead and cross the street here in just a second to get a look. But we can see that the overall density here is much better than the other OC streetcar stations. We truly are now in downtown Santa Ana, so hopefully we'll see a good amount of ridership at these stations. And my favorite feature that I always tell everyone about the station is how the bike lane elevates itself up to the sidewalk level, and it showcases that bikes do need to yield for pedestrians. So that's absolutely helping with pedestrian safety in the area. But also it looks like there is a track heading left from here, likely connecting to 4th Street where the eastbound Santa Ana streetcar is. So maybe could this mean a potential shuttle or something in the future? Either way, this is probably only just for the ability to move streetcars in between the 2 tracks in the event of a service disruption or change. As if maintenance does need to be done on one of the tracks, we do need to have an alternative in order for streetcars to get around it. Anyways, protecting the bike lane here is a small median with some succulents in it. Also, just across the street is some public art out here in downtown Santa Ana, which is awesome to see. Just to our left-hand side is a county office, and you can notice that all of it is fenced off here. And I think this is a missed opportunity for workers, passengers, or anyone who needs to use the facility here to use the streetcar stop to enter. So this will provide a lot of extra walking, unfortunately. So maybe in the future, the county office can consider putting some gates up by the station that can be unlocked with a key card. But looking in the distance, we can see the next stop along the line just a little bit, which is in front of the old Orange County Courthouse on our left-hand side. This is a historic courthouse where many events take place, including weddings and all sorts of things. It's also home to the Sycamore Street Station for westbound traffic. So let's go ahead and get a look at that in just a second as we go ahead and cross Broadway. As you can see here, the traffic at this intersection is actually quite busy. So there is some car life here in downtown Santa Ana, and this is where I would imagine a lot of streetcars would wait for, both in the westbound direction of travel here at the street we're on now, and at the eastbound direction of travel 2 blocks south at 4th Street. But now let's go ahead and cross and take a better look at the station. Just on our left-hand side, we did see some medians in between the Broadway street here, and there are trees that separate the sidewalk from the street, which I think is a great touch. Also, we can see that the bike lane on the right-hand side continues, and it's so wide that they actually have a car parked here. I'm not sure why that is allowed even before the streetcar's opening, since the bike lane should be open before the streetcar does, providing that extra service to bikers. But there's a vehicle parked there, but the point is it's wide enough for bikes to pass each other and safely operate. But here we are at the Sycamore Street station, where we can see similar features to the previous stations we've looked at. First of all, we have this very large tree right next to the station, which actually provides a great deal of shade, much more than that little roof structure does. Just straight ahead, we can see that plywood is covering that ticket vending machine, which is also eventually going to have wave cards, which is like the tap card of Orange County. That'll be coming soon. But the bike lane continues, and unfortunately the only entrance to the station was right there at that intersection. So I think it's honestly okay, especially with the trees blocking access to the station. But looking back here, let's go ahead and take a look at the old Orange County Courthouse while we're here. You can see there's some cannons, it looks like, positioned in front of it, and overall it looks like a great environment to be and host an event. But now let's jump to the Santa Ana Regional Transportation Center, where we're going to end this video. Leaving just there is the 83, which is a connection available here for Metrolink, Amtrak, and future OC Streetcar passengers. Several other routes also connect here, including a rapid route, 560. There's also Transit Orange Development, most likely here for the Metrolink and Amtrak stations, which is located throughout the area and is on our right-hand side as well. But the actual Santa Ana Regional Transportation Center station is located just ahead on our left-hand side. Now, it looks like not really anything new has been done here, unfortunately. There are no construction workers, and it looks like everything is pretty much being focused on the catenary and the stations more towards the western end of the line. But if you want to see a more in-depth look at the station itself over there and the parking lot, which is pretty much complete, feel free to take a look at last month's construction update. And with that, that brings us to a close for this one. I hope you're as excited for the opening of the OC Streetcar as much as I am, and hopefully we'll see it testing as soon as possible. I'll see you all next month. Have an awesome rest of your day or night.